Hello. Today General Hospital will reveal the week of July 7, 2025, on General Hospital marks a seismic shift in the fabric of Port Charles, as the lives of beloved and controversial characters spiral into chaos, betrayal, and heartbreak. This is not simply another chapter in the ongoing saga, but the beginning of a dark, emotionally charged storm destined to leave lasting scars across families, friendships, and alliances. At the heart of this turbulent week lies Emma, whose soul appears to be unraveling under the weight of grief and betrayal. Once a beacon of strength and compassion, she now finds herself drowning in sorrow so deep it threatens to consume everything she's ever believed in. Her pain is not isolated, it mirrors the emotional ruptures reverberating throughout the town. Elsewhere, a long-brewing confrontation between Rocco and Lulu explodes in a way that no one in the Falconeri or Spencer families could have anticipated. For too long, hidden truths and unspoken resentments have simmered beneath the surface, and this week, all that suppressed emotion finally boils over. Rocco's anger is fierce, raw, and rooted in more than just recent revelations. It is the culmination of years of deception, neglect, and emotional abandonment. Lulu, who thought she was protecting her son, may now find herself facing the most devastating loss of all, his trust, and perhaps even his presence in her life. But the emotional wreckage does not stop there. Sasha, already familiar with tragedy, is blindsided by a terrifying discovery that shakes her to her core. What she uncovers is not just another misfortune, it is a revelation so dark, so deeply personal, that it threatens to undo every ounce of stability she's managed to rebuild. Her journey from victim to survivor takes a chilling turn, and what lies ahead for her could either harden her resolve or break her completely. Amidst the personal anguish, the underworld of Port Charles is erupting into open warfare. Sonny, the longtime kingpin who has ruled the streets with a combination of loyalty and fear, finds his power threatened by a rival whose ambition knows no boundaries. Sidwell, calculating and ruthless, is not just targeting Sonny. He's reshaping the battlefield entirely. By expelling Selena from the country and orchestrating her fall, he sends a chilling message that no alliance is sacred and no enemy is too powerful to dismantle. Sonny, in turn, grows increasingly suspicious of those around him, especially Marco, whose connection to Christina has made him both a target and a liability. The lines between protector and pawn are blurring fast, and with every move, Sonny grows more desperate, and more dangerous. Meanwhile, the mystery surrounding Natalia's death casts a long, unsettling shadow over the week's events. Though labeled an overdose, her sudden passing doesn't sit right with those who knew her best. Subtle inconsistencies, cryptic behaviors, and the eerie timing of her demise point to a far more sinister reality than anyone wants to admit. As the autopsy results loom, those connected to her begin to question not only how she died, but who might have wanted her gone, and why. Natalia's legacy, far from fading quietly, might ignite a chain reaction of suspicion and revenge that ripples through the Corinthos family and beyond. As Anna begins her pursuit of justice by interrogating Sidwell about the fire that nearly claimed innocent lives, she finds herself confronting a stone wall of deflection. Sidwell, ever the manipulator, doesn't give her answers, he gives her a cryptic direction: find him. Who he is remains a mystery, but the implications are clear. There's a deeper game unfolding, and Anna may be chasing shadows in a maze designed to keep her lost. With secrets unraveling, loyalties being tested, and grief morphing into vengeance, the week of July 7th isn't just a pivotal stretch of episodes, it's the eruption of every tension that's been quietly building beneath the surface of Port Charles for months. What begins with heartbreak may end with betrayal, and what starts as grief may morph into bloodshed. No one is safe. No one is untouched. And by the end of the week, everything viewers thought they knew about their favorite characters will be shattered by the truth. First, Emma Scorpio Drake's world begins to collapse in agonizing silence during the week of July 7, 2025, as her once stable reality is ripped apart by betrayal, rejection, and a heartbreak she never saw coming. Known for her composure, maturity, and compassionate heart, Emma has always carried herself with quiet strength, often acting as the emotional anchor for those around her. But this week, for the first time in a long time, she is the one who finds herself untethered. It all begins with a confrontation that shakes her to her core, an unexpected and emotionally charged face-off with Jocelyn Jacks, whose piercing words cut deeper than any wound Emma has endured. The confrontation is not just about a boy, nor merely about rivalry, it's about power, perception, and a growing sense that Emma has become invisible in the very world she once thought she understood. The tension between Emma and Jocelyn doesn't erupt overnight, it's been building, subtle and venomous, beneath the surface. Jocelyn, driven by her relentless need to control the narrative surrounding her investigation into Professor Henry Dalton, has gradually pushed people aside, blinded by the obsession of uncovering the truth. But in doing so, she's unknowingly positioned herself between Emma and Gio, two people whose emotional connection had quietly flourished in the background of Port Charles. Emma had started to believe in something rare and fragile with Gio. Something innocent, hopeful, and untainted by the manipulations of power and legacy. But now, that belief is being shattered. As Emma begins to sense Gio slipping away, her heartbreak becomes suffocating, especially as she realizes that Jocelyn may not only be involved but may have been the catalyst in turning Joe's affections elsewhere. Midweek, Anna Devane tries to reach out to Emma, recognizing the subtle signs of emotional unraveling in her granddaughter. Anna, haunted by her own regrets and hardened by decades of moral compromise, approaches Emma with tenderness, offering comfort in a moment when everything else in the young woman's life feels cold and hollow. But Emma, though appreciative of the gesture, is far from ready to be soothed. Her heartbreak isn't just about love, it's about identity, about feeling used, discarded, and overlooked in a world dominated by louder voices and more commanding presences. For so long, she believed that staying kind, loyal, and authentic would be enough. But now, she is questioning whether any of it ever mattered. Adding salt to her emotional wounds is the painful realization that she was never truly central in the story unfolding around her. While Jocelyn chases secrets and exposes dangerous truths about Dalton, Emma has been nothing more than collateral, an accidental casualty in someone else's crusade. Even Gio, who once seemed to see her clearly, may have been swept away in Jocelyn's magnetic pull, leaving Emma feeling invisible and discarded. The worst part isn't just the sense of betrayal, it's the creeping fear that she was never truly loved, only tolerated, and perhaps even pitied. In the quiet moments, behind closed doors, Emma's suffering manifests in isolation. She withdraws from her peers, from school, from every place that once gave her a sense of belonging. Her tears are silent, but the pain behind them is deafening. For a girl who has always held herself together, her unraveling is all the more tragic. There is no dramatic outburst, no storm of anger, only a slow implosion, a hollowing out of someone who once believed in the good of people, in the promise of love, and in the protection of family. But something deeper is stirring beneath Emma's despair. As she stands in the ruins of her first true heartbreak, she begins to feel something unexpected, a spark of resolve. If she was used, if she was discarded, if she was underestimated, then perhaps it's time she stopped being the quiet, accommodating observer and started reclaiming control over her own narrative. The path ahead for Emma will not be one of passive mourning but of transformation. What Jocelyn and Gio may have unleashed in her is not weakness, but awakening. And as Emma takes her first uncertain steps out of the shadows of this betrayal, the quietest voice in Port Charles may soon become one of its most powerful. Second, during the week of July 7, 2025, General Hospital thrusts Sasha Gilmore Corbin into the darkest chapter of her life yet, a slow-burning descent into psychological torment that culminates in a horrifying discovery that will not only reshape her fate, but send shockwaves through Port Charles. Longtime viewers have watched Sasha suffer and survive through drug addiction, the tragic death of her child, and the betrayal of those closest to her. She has emerged time and again from these trials stronger, scarred but still standing. But nothing could have prepared her for what is to come, a new trauma so insidious, so deeply personal, that it threatens to undo all the healing she has fought so hard to achieve. In recent weeks, Sasha has grown increasingly unsettled by strange occurrences surrounding Daisy Gilmore Corinthos, the child she has come to love as her own. She has sensed, perhaps even known, that someone has been toying with her. At first, it seemed minor, a lullaby she never remembered playing softly echoing from the nursery monitor, Daisy's favorite blanket found in an unexpected place, a stuffed animal that had been missing for months mysteriously appearing on the rocking chair. These weren't just coincidences, they were violations, deliberate intrusions into her most sacred space. Still, Sasha tried to dismiss the unease. After all, she had been through so much. Her mind had betrayed her before. Maybe, just maybe, it was happening again. But the feeling only intensified. She started noticing footprints outside the window, small but unmistakable. The baby monitor would flicker in and out at odd times, and more than once she was certain she heard whispering through the speaker. Sasha began documenting everything, photos, voice recordings, timestamps. Not because anyone believed her, but because she knew she needed proof. She even confided in Cody Bell, hoping the man who had once stood by her through the worst of her breakdowns would believe her instincts this time. But Cody, distracted by his own secrets and weighed down by the guilt he still carried, treated her worries as emotional overreactions. He offered placating words but no real support. His disengagement didn't just hurt Sasha, it isolated her further, confirming that if something terrible did happen, she would face it alone. And then, it did. It was late. The house was quiet. Sasha had finally drifted into a shallow, restless sleep, her body exhausted but her mind still alert. Then, without warning, the baby monitor emitted a sound, a soft creak, almost like a footstep on a wooden floor. Her eyes flew open. Instinct and terror surged through her as she raced down the hallway, her heart thudding violently in her chest. She reached the nursery door, which she always left cracked open, only to find it slightly wider than usual. The mobile above the crib was spinning slowly. But Daisy wasn't there. The room was empty. No crying. No movement. Just a deafening stillness that pressed in on Sasha like a vice. She rushed around the room, throwing open closets, pulling aside curtains, checking every corner, every inch of the floor. Nothing. Panic gave way to a guttural, primal scream, a sound so raw and anguished it echoed through the Corinthos estate and beyond. Security arrived within moments. Family members followed, their faces a mixture of confusion and alarm. But to Sasha, it was already too late. Her daughter was gone. And in that moment, something inside her broke in a way it never had before. The questions came fast and sharp. Had Daisy been taken? Had Sasha misplaced her? Was she hallucinating? Some even whispered the unthinkable, had there ever been a child at all? The possibility that her grief had finally unmoored her from reality was too painful to entertain, and yet, it hung in the air like a ghost. But Sasha knew what she had seen, what she had felt, what she had lived. She knew Daisy was real. She knew something evil had happened. And worse still, she began to realize that this wasn't a random abduction, it had been building, planned, orchestrated. Someone had been watching her. Someone had been studying her vulnerabilities. And someone had waited until the precise moment she was most alone to strike. The betrayal stung deepest when Sasha reviewed her recent conversations with those closest to her. Cody's indifference. The dismissive glances from Sunny. The cautious concern from Carly, who seemed more worried about the optics than the truth. Sasha felt surrounded by people who claimed to care but failed to act. And now, with Daisy gone, she couldn't trust anyone, not even herself. Desperation gave way to a cold, sharp determination. If no one would believe her, she would find the answers herself. Her investigation began immediately. Sasha combed through security footage, demanded access to phone logs, and retraced every step from the previous 48 hours. She questioned everyone, housekeepers, guards, delivery men. Her instincts, now fueled by righteous fury, honed in on patterns. There had been a man at the park 2 days ago, one she didn't recognize, watching Daisy play. There had been an unfamiliar perfume lingering in the nursery the night before. She discovered fingerprints on Daisy's crib rail. Too large to be hers or the baby's, and not matching Cody's. Something was deeply wrong. The deeper Sasha dug, the more sinister the puzzle became. She learned that the adoption paperwork for Daisy had never been properly finalized. There were missing documents. Delays. Legal inconsistencies. It was as if someone had deliberately stalled the process, kept Daisy in a limbo that could be easily exploited. And then, through a connection at the hospital, Sasha uncovered something even more chilling. Daisy's original birth certificate had been tampered with. The mother's name had been redacted. The father's identity unknown. Sasha began to wonder, was Daisy even who she thought she was? Had she been manipulated into bonding with a child who was always meant to be taken from her? The implications were devastating. What if this wasn't just about Daisy? What if this was part of a broader conspiracy? One that linked back to Sasha's past, to Gladys, to the people who had once controlled her bank accounts, her body, and her sanity. The more she peeled back the layers, the more she realized that Daisy's disappearance might not have been about revenge, it might have been about reclaiming property. And in this twisted game, Daisy was the pawn. Now, Sasha stands at a crossroads. Her heartbreak has hardened into resolve. Her grief has become her armor. She is no longer the woman who once wept quietly in rehab or begged for help that never came. She is a mother on the edge, with nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. And if Port Charles thought it had seen Sasha broken before, it has no idea what she is capable of when she has been pushed to the brink. What began as a whispered torment has become a war cry. And the woman who was gaslit, abandoned, and stripped of her child is now ready to burn down the world to get her daughter back. Third, in one of the most emotionally charged and unforgettable moments of the week beginning July 7, 2025, General Hospital turns its lens toward a painful and raw confrontation that has been years in the making, one that centers around the once innocent, now deeply wounded heart of Rocco Falconeri. The teenager, played with growing emotional intensity by Finn Carr, finds his world violently upended by a revelation that shakes the foundation of his identity. Lulu is not his biological mother. This isn't merely a plot twist, it is a complete unraveling of everything Rocco believed about who he is, where he came from, and who he can trust. For Rocco, the discovery isn't a quiet realization but a cataclysm. The truth doesn't come gently, it crashes into him with the force of betrayal. All his life, he had believed that Lulu was his mother in every sense of the word. She was there when he took his first steps, when he spoke his first words, when he cried through the night and celebrated his victories. She was the one who kissed his bruises, who read him bedtime stories, who shielded him from the storms of Port Charles. And now, in the blink of an eye, all of that is called into question. Suddenly, those memories feel tainted, distorted by a lie so profound it threatens to strip him of his very sense of self. The confrontation begins with confusion, but quickly escalates into anguish and rage. Rocco doesn't just want answers, he demands them. His voice cracks under the weight of disbelief. His fists tremble as years of unspoken doubts, suppressed emotions, and quiet observations now erupt in a torrent of questions. Why didn't she tell him? When was she going to? Who is his real mother? And perhaps the most cutting question of all, was he ever truly her son, or just a placeholder for a truth she was too afraid to face? Lulu is completely blindsided. Played with riveting vulnerability by Alexa Havens-Bruning, she is forced to confront not only Rocco's pain but the guilt and fear that have haunted her for years. She had always told herself that she would tell him someday, when he was older, when he was ready. But that day never seemed to arrive, and now, the decision to withhold the truth has come back to devastate them both. The timing couldn't be worse. Her relationship with Rocco was already fragile after her long coma and slow return to his life. And now, just as she was beginning to believe they were rebuilding their bond, everything is being torn apart by a truth she can no longer hide. Dante's reaction is just as explosive. Having endured his own revelations about parentage and trust, he understands the gravity of what Rocco is experiencing, but he also struggles with his role in the deception. Did he protect Lulu too much? Did he silence his own doubts for the sake of unity, all while failing to prepare his son for the truth? Dante finds himself torn between supporting Rocco and standing by Lulu, and that tension threatens to fracture the family even further. Meanwhile, Brooklyn Quartermaine, already dealing with her own revelations about her son Gio, becomes entangled in the emotional fallout as well. She sees her own mistakes reflected in Lulu's, and it reignites her fear of losing the fragile connection she's begun to establish with Gio. Rocco, feeling betrayed by every adult in his life, begins to pull away from all of them. He skips school, ignores calls, and starts spending time alone in places that once brought him peace. On the docks, at the old Falconeri family cabin, even at the grave of someone he doesn't name. His isolation is not merely about anger, it's about loss. To Rocco, this isn't just about finding out who his biological mother is. It's about mourning the version of his life he thought was real. It's about wondering if every hug, every moment, every word from Lulu was just a lie wrapped in maternal affection.